Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says the country's new Indo-Pacific strategy sends a strong message to the region that Canada can be trusted as a long-term partner. The strategy earmarks $2.3 billion for Canada to form closer ties with countries that span Pakistan to Japan, including by increasing military presence in the region. It includes nearly $500 million to deploy a third naval frigate to the area and boost collaboration on both cybersecurity and military training. Well, with us now to discuss the strategy is Jonathan Berkshire Miller, an expert on Indo-Pacific affairs and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thanks so much for having me, Nima.
So, what do we know so far about the overall goal of this new Indo-Pacific strategy and why Canada is investing 2.3 billion into it?
Well, I think it's the sort of coming to fruition of a long-standing sort of feeling in Canada that we need to realize that we are a Pacific nation. Of course, we're a North American nation too, and an Atlantic nation, and an Arctic nation, but we do have significant ties to the Asia Pacific. And what happens there, for the good and for the bad, means a lot to Canada. So I think that the strategy process is a recognition of that, recognizing what our interests in this part of the world are, and making sure that we secure them.
And we did mention a few in our intro, but what are the overall measures proposed in this strategy?
Well, I think the strategy is looking at a number of different pillars on security, on trade, on climate, energy, et cetera, and trying to realize that the different challenges that this region faces and the different opportunities are wide in scope and wide in partnerships. I think, as you mentioned, I mean, the scoping of this region goes from the East China Sea in Japan and South Korea all the way to the Indian Ocean and India and Pakistan. So there's a wide range of states that we have to deal with in this region and a wide range of issues.
Wide range of issues indeed. So, on that note, how critical is this Indo Pacific strategy and trade for Canada in the region, especially amid tensions with China in particular?
Well, I think again, this is a recognition that, and maybe COVID sort of spread, the COVID pandemic spread this up a little bit quicker, is that we need to diversify our trading efforts to more secure and reliable partners. So when we think about the Asia Pacific, China is one country, but there's more countries in that region, and many others are much more reliable suppliers. Such as Japan, such as South Korea, such as India, for example. So I think we need to bolster those relationships. So I think that's part of what the genesis of this strategy looks at.
And we know the strategy is aiming to invest in people to people ties and building a sustainable future in the region. So, what exactly does this look like practically?
Well, I think it's going to take a whole team of Canada effort. So it's not just more ships, naval ships into the region, or more diplomats into the region, but this is going to take a significant private sector effort. This is going to involve civil society and a recognition that our future really is an Asia Pacific future. And in order to seize those opportunities, we need to do this in a tandem with government at all levels, but with also with other stakeholders.
And it's clear that we're not the only country interested in the Indo Pacific region. So, overall, how does this plan measure up to our allies and what they're doing in the area?
You're right. I think we were pretty slow on the delivery of this. I mean, it was over 3 years in the making, and several of our other allies have already had strategies: the United States, Japan, Australia, many states in Europe. I think that there's some similarities, as there should be similarities. I was happy to see, for example, mentioning of working with the United States in the region, working with the quote unquote Five Eyes, which is our Anglo countries that we work together on security intelligence. That makes sense. I mean, we need to be working with countries that are like minded and share our interests in order to secure the future that we want in this part of the world.
Is there anything missing in this strategy when it comes to Canada strengthening its presence in the region?
Well, as always, the devil's in the details. And I think that there are some things that we want to see action on. Words are one thing, action is another thing. So I think that there's plenty of pledges here and commitments rhetorically, but we need to actually see that turn into concrete actions. One area that I think that it was positive to see some development was on foreign interference, for example, but we didn't see the government go as far as to pledge to move forward on discussing legislation, for example, of a foreign agent registry, which I think is an important thing that Canada needs. So definitely are some blind spots that I think still need to be addressed.
Sounds like a lot to keep our eyes on. Sir, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break with more major news stories from across Canada. Doctors urge Canadians to keep up with routine vaccinations. And Alberta Children's Hospital is getting a heated trailer amid a surge in patients. Food banks call for donations, even as they say structural changes are needed. E3 Lithium gets federal funding, and a heritage group in Nova Scotia works to save a lighthouse that is over 100 years old. We'll be back with more on those stories, along with others like them after the break. So stay with us. Forum Daily will be right back.